Interface Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Hello friends, and welcome to Fairfield Today. Paul Jasson with you as we broadcast from the lobby downtown of Fairfield Federal. And again, they're open for business, opened up a month ago. The lobby is now open, the drive-thrus are open, they're back in business. Of course, you can still do everything online at fairfield.com, so it's really up to you which way you want to go, but you have that option now as the lobby is open. Good to have you with today. Second half of the program, we're going to talk about the Fairfield County Parks, and they have a levy coming up. There's all things about that. We'll talk to someone who's in the know about all that. That'll be the second half of the show. First half of the show, pleasure to have back with us, and he's about as hard to get on here as anybody I know, the mayor of Lancaster, Dave Scheffler, and he's only hard to get on because he's gone so much over the winter. You travel a good bit, even under these dire conditions. You were gone at least twice while I tried to get you.
Yeah, both weeks I was gone, you tried to get me, right. So.
Well, it's no point if I could get you. I'd rather whine about it.
You have asked me a number of other times that I had other city business.
I will say this, we've been very fortunate with you and the previous mayors. Everybody has always been so gracious to us to come on whenever they're around, whenever you're around. You, Dave Smith, everybody was always very good about coming on. So Dave Scheffler, the mayor of Lancaster, things going well as an overview, things in the city?
Yes. If we could get this COVID thing over, it would be great, but by the time this airs, $48 million will have rained down on the city of Lancaster in new stimulus payments. So that always helps everything.
Puts a smile on your face a little bit.
Puts a smile on my face. Unfortunately, none of it's taxable for city income tax purposes. But $48 million.
But it's free money.
It's free money. It's free money. That's right.
Free money. As we look back, we've been a little over a year, maybe 13 months by the time this airs, and we look back over this year. Is it still kind of unbelievable when you think about what's gone on?
Yeah, and it's really hard to believe it's been a year.
Yeah.
It seems like only last week, but if you think about all the interim times when things didn't happen that should have happened, like the festival and Friday night bandstand and parades,
fair of some sort.
Yeah. It adds up that it is a year.
Well, it's been, I've mentioned before that when this was coming about back in March, the first thing that really kind of, they were talking about these cases breaking out. We heard little things going on the news, nothing big though. But then the governor cancels the Arnold. Mm-hmm. And at that point I thought, this is big because that is the moneymaker for Columbus. So when the governor made that call, I thought there's something to this.
That's easily tens of millions of dollars and maybe hundreds of millions coming into the economy in Columbus. Yes, that's a big
and in our own way, like you say, the festival, things that were generating income and did things for tourism and things to build up Lancaster. In our own way, the fair, it was closed. For the most part, it was closed. So, everybody suffered some pain on this.
Yes. For sure.
So now let's go back a while. I think the last time we talked, we were talking about the levy had passed, and things were, regardless of the money coming in for the stimulus money, things were looking up there. Things were going to happen because the levy passed, because we knew that things were not going to happen if the levy did not pass. And certainly up front on that was police and fire. Those were things that were uppermost in the city's mind that If this didn't happen, I know Dave Ward said they were going to go to 60s kind of levels on this.
Actually, we're worse than that right now.
Really?
So for both fire and police, we consider 72 full strength. And as of this morning, and I just...
Is that for the police?
That's for police and fire.
72?
72 would be full strength.
So they both have the same amount of strength?
Okay. Basically. Okay. So... As of, and I talked to both chiefs this morning before I came over to get the update, we actually have 62 on payroll in the police department. As of this morning, we have 58 working because we have 2 off on injury and 2 off on family medical leave. So we're really shorthanded. At fire, with 72 is full strength, we have 61 on payroll, and we have 59 working because we have 2 off on injury. So we are working on that. We have given the civil service test, which is, because we're a statutory city, that's how we are required to hire firefighters and police officers. And we, after the civil service test, and we had, I think for police, we had 72 sign up to take the test, something like less than 50 actually showed up to take it, and I think 45 passed. And now we get from the Civil Service Commission, which is a group of local, 2 volunteers and 1 paid person as a director, we get a list of 10. So then we work our way through the top 10, and this is both for police and fire. And even after we get the list, it takes generally about 6 months to hire either a police officer or a firefighter, because of all of the screening and testing that has to be done. They have to pass a physical fitness test, obviously a physical, drug screening, a polygraph test, a psychological evaluation. So all these things have to be scheduled, take time, and with COVID, that makes it even more difficult to get these things scheduled because people, have to observe social distancing and all that. So right now, we have several recruits in the works in the police department. We have 2 in the fire. We have 2 that have accepted, and will be starting sometime in the near future. We have 2 that are still somewhere in the evaluation process that hopefully will get started in the next couple of months, and we have 1 with an offer still outstanding. So we're getting up to strength as quickly as we can under the circumstances. But again, it's not like in private business where you can just go out, run an ad, or and hire somebody. You have to go through the whole process as required by the Ohio Revised Code and all that. So it's a long haul. It may be, we'll be lucky to be up to 72 by the end of the year, even early next year. And of course, with fire, our objective is to add a 4th staffed medic, and that's another 12 firefighter paramedics that we have to add. So it could easily be the end of 22 before we get that done. We have been able to do a lot of updating of obsolete or worn out equipment. And computers are always an interesting thing. We found out late last year that we had probably a dozen desktop computers in the police department that ran Windows 7, and that's as advanced they can get. So they're not going to be supported after this year.
Supported.
And all the MDTs in the cruisers were Windows 7 and couldn't be supported. So we have, we're in the process of updating all the desktop computers. The MDTs, either we have them in hand or they have been installed in the cruisers. So we're getting there. We have the same circumstance in fire and in other departments, but those are the critical ones. With fire, we are in the process of speccing out a new medic, which is about $400,000, and the chiefs and the firefighters have a committee that are working on speccing that out because of what our special needs are here and what we use it for. And hopefully that will be introduced into council either on Monday or on April 12th, so we can get that on order. It won't be here until sometime early next year. That's the lead time on those. In police, we have 3 cruisers on order. Typically those are 8 to 10 weeks out to get them. We don't know what the situation is, or we haven't been advised of what the situation is because of COVID. And is there a backlog in manufacturing or in getting parts Then after they get here, they have to be outfitted with all the equipment, and those all come from the state bid list. So the state goes out every year and gets bids, and then gets the lowest price, and then we can just all the cities and counties can make use of that bid list, so we get those vehicles at the best price the state can get. But they come through a local dealer, so for service and such.
To use a popular phrase right now, let me circle back to something you spoke on earlier when they were giving the civil service test, and particularly to the fire, because I talked to Chief Ward a good bit, talked to him about all this that was going on there. And as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if somebody that's hired now in the fire department will be a fireman / medic.
Paramedic, right.
Okay. So when someone takes that test, do they already have to have the qualifications or the background or the licenses to do that? Or is that something that once that person is determined to be hired, that it's up to them to get that, or the city helps them get that? How does that work?
So in the past, we have required that they be a paramedic when we hire them. Out of the 62 that we have on staff, we only have 5 that are not paramedics.
Yep.
But they have been on the force for many years.
Grandfathered kind of in.
Grandfathered in.
Yep.
So we have just reached an agreement that we can now hire firefighters who are either taking the paramedic course or will take it after we hire them, with the agreement that they have to achieve that paramedic status within 36 months. And there's the course itself is 18 months, and then you in the next 18, so you have 18 months then to actually pass the test, and that gives you 6 chances in that second 18 months to pass it. And if you haven't achieved that status within the 36 months, then your employment's terminated.
Now, is that something the city helps a person with that, or is that something you're all on your own?
At the moment, you're on your own to do that.
Okay, and it's much the same for police. I know most people they used to go down to Hocking Technical,
yes,
Hocking College now, and that's where these tests were given. Is that still the typical?
Well, what we prefer to do is send recruits to the Highway Patrol Academy, which is no cost to us.
That's in Columbus?
In Columbus, and it's about a 6-month course. You actually live there, and it's pretty intense.
6 months and you live there?
Yeah.
Wow.
But right now, that's closed because of COVID.
Oh.
So we do have 2 recruits at Hocking getting their APATA certification. But we hope the academy is going to open back up here maybe in April, so we can get some recruits in the next class.
We've only got about a minute left. Something just came to my attention before we went on, and we only have a minute or so left, so we won't get into it. About a week ago, you kind of opened up on Facebook about this, and this is about a road off of Edie Road. It's River something.
Riverway Drive.
And
yes.
you know it well.
Yes.
It's between Edie Road and down where Frisch's.
The ring road around the mall.
Right. Okay. Great bit of disrepair. And again, we only have about a minute to talk about it, so we can't have you go crazy on it. But I know you've had some signs actually put up on the end of the road indicating that that's not a safe road.
Right. That road is privately owned. It is not safe to travel. There is a sign at either end that says travel at your own risk. It also has the name and address of the owner of the road. And we would certainly encourage every member of the public to write a letter to that gentleman and ask him to fix that road. When it was constructed back in the 80s, it was not constructed to city standards, so it is not. It was cheaply built and has suffered since. But the interesting thing is that all the out parcels that were sold along that road for businesses or apartments, when they purchased the land, they signed a contract to pay in an amount every year for road maintenance. And Mr. Glimsher never billed for those amounts, and so none of those businesses have ever paid any of it. And the unpaid balance at this point is $1 million.
Give or take.
And if you give or take 10,000, if you add interest on, it's about $1.5 million.
Right.
Our city engineer estimates that the cost to get that road up to city standards is $1 million, strangely enough.
All right. Well, we're going to continue this. Next time we have him on, we'll talk more about this, but it's an amazing story that's kind of evolved and taken place. You can look on the Facebook page, the mayor's Facebook page, and lots of information on there on it. Mayor Dave, thank you for being with us. Always a pleasure.
Always happen to be here. I'm so far away across the street.
Well, and it's been hard getting you on, even at that.
Well,
but
the mayor is a busy job.
I've heard rumors.
I'm sure there are people who don't believe that.
Mayor Dave Scheffler of Lancaster, we've always appreciated him being with us. He's always someone that's always, anytime we've asked him to come on, he's been more than helpful on that. We'll be back to talk about the parks in just a moment.
Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
We were retiring from Tucson, Arizona, and we made a retirement trip out around Ohio, having decided that's where we wanted to be. And we came across this town called Lancaster, and we fell in love with the downtown area, where the fountain is, and the memorials, and the flags, and all the stuff. And I looked around and I said, there's our bank right there.
There's something to be said about a community bank in your hometown.
Right. If you live in the community, you should do business in the community as much as possible. So it makes sense to bank with the community bank where you live.
Fairfield Federal is the bank to be at. If you live in this town, or any town actually, you want to bank at a local home bank. And the employees are happy here, they're conversant, customer service is through the roof. There's nothing more you could ask for.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Welcome back to Fairfield today. As we indicated, we're going to talk about the Fairfield County Parks District. And as I remember a little history on this, I think this was formed back in 1981. I think they have 885 acres, as I remember. What I don't remember is how many parks. Do you know, Ken?
Yes, I do. 17.
Ken Culver, if you have a question about the parks or anything, today is your day, at least my day, to ask Ken Culver. Ken is the chairman of the Parks Renewal Levy campaign that's out there to renew the levy for the Fairfield County Parks. And I will admit to you that probably maybe 20 years ago, Dave Fay, of course, ran that forever and did I thought, a thankless but a wonderful job running the parks with almost no help, it seemed like. And I can remember the first time I paid attention to a levy, I thought it was the city parks. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew so little about the county parks. The only parks I knew were Bo Gear and all these people that around here. So and then we had Dave Fay on a bunch of times, and just a wonderful fella. And now the Rock Mill is the linchpin of the whole park system. But it's a renewal and no new taxes. I think we want to hit that, right, Ken?
Absolutely true. No new taxes. And going back in time, you're right. Dave Fay was the linchpin of the program. It was run by volunteers. Many volunteers making it happen, with Dave being the
tireless.
Absolutely. Finally, there were several attempts for a levy over the years in the late 90s. Right. And finally, the county commissioners said in the early part of the 21st century, 2011.
Okay.
This is your last chance, Dave Fay and the parks. We're not going to allow this to go on the ballot if any more times. So in 2011, it was passed. It was a 0.4 mill levy, which amounts to about something like $9.61 for a $100,000 value home. Very, very small. And so for 10 years, the parks have been ramping up. We were able to hire some people, some nature folks, some maintenance folks. They've acquired new land. And by the way, that number is now over 1,000 acres.
I know they've added
right,
new things.
1,000 acres.
Wow.
And so now we're at the point where we need to get that levy renewed, and so it's going on the ballot in May 4th, and we're asking all the voters of Fairfield County to please vote yes for parks. You can see the sign behind. In fact, for those people who have a long enough memory, they may recall that is the same sign that was used in 2011. That very same sign. We just changed the language a little bit to be in compliance with the new treasurer and things of that nature. But that says it all, yes, parks. And so we're asking people to vote for renewal so that we can continue to not only maintain the parks, but expand them as well.
And I know that, like you say, back in the Dave Fade era 20 years ago, there was Dave and a bunch of volunteers. That's how it was run. Well, things change. Things have evolved. And I know you still, Todd Youngkin.
Todd Youngkin's the director.
Is the director.
Now. Yes.
And of course we have some more employees, not a lot, but for 1,000 acres, not a tremendous amount of people to work all that. They work very well within their budget.
They certainly do, and those acres are spread all through the county. We have a piece here that I think is going to be put on the screen at some point.
We'll put it up there. Yep.
That shows just the spread of the parks. 17 of them all over, from Violet Township to Baltimore to south of here, all the way as far as Pickaway County line. And so that's a lot of distance and a lot of acreage. And it's not only just recreational acreage, but it's many miles of hiking trails now too, and of course historic buildings. Incidentally, it's worth noting that this is known as the historic Fairfield County Parks, and in fact, there's a lot of history. There are 23 historic buildings on site, everything from a hand-dug well to cabins, seven covered bridges. But now the Parks District wants to expand and be considered not only the historic parks, but parks generally, historic, that is parks for recreational purposes. I mentioned we have 1,000 acres, many miles of hiking trails. I've been on any number of them lately. It's great to see people out with their dogs and their kids and so forth, especially in this time of COVID when they can get out into the outdoors and enjoy what's going on.
I was going to ask you that and I know you just come on for the campaign here, so you're not a parks employee, but if you looked over the arc of the past year, what's that COVID situation? How has it affected the county parks?
Well, the county parks up until 2020 had a whole host of outreach programs. Everything from covered bridge crawls, where you could go from one covered bridge to the next, to hunts, scavenger hunts at the various parks, to interpretive talks, to wildflower walks, you name it, many things each month. All of that had to be put on hold, of course. However, being outdoors, the parks are open, most of them, for walking and hiking and so forth. And of course, we're hoping, like every other organization, every other person, that 2021 is going to be a transition year when we can get back to doing those kinds of things again.
If you go to a search engine and look it up, is it fairfieldcountyparks.org?
fairfieldcountyparks.org, that's exactly what it is. Right. Good job. And so I would refer people to that to learn more details.
Yeah, I know you have lots of information on there about the levy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, it's a 0.4 renewal, no new taxes. I can't say that enough.
Sure.
And so that's what we're aiming for. I might mention some of you mentioned Stapleton at Rock Mill. That's kind of the crown jewel.
Sure.
But there are others that are getting to be very popular. Smeck Park in Basel.
Been a lot of chatter about that.
Absolutely. Wonderful hiking trails. And if this levy gets approved, we certainly hope that it will, our next big opening is going to be Mambro on East Main Street, Mambro Park on East 22 rather, about 5 miles out of town.
Oh, out east here?
Out east.
The Manberg Lodge area?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I know you've taken that on years ago.
Yes. That was donated to the parks, and the park now has we have a wonderful parking area. We have a paved road back to the.
Is it open now?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
But it will be. We should have it open. That's going to be the next big opening this year.
Yep.
That's going to be a nature center with an interpreter on site, bird watching, a beautiful pond, again, a lot of walking trails, and so look for that one to be the next one that's going to open.
And I will kind of back you up on that. I've had occasion to go out there over the years, well before the parks ever owned it, back when the Manbergs owned it, and it is just a perfect setting for the parks to own a place like that. It is great that they gave it, that you've taken it over, and the parks can develop that because that has so much potential.
Yes, it does. A beautiful area for watching birds. Weather permitting, there'll be ice skating in the next winter, and lots of nature walking. You know, I have to bring up one thing about Dave Fay that I'll never forget about him. As he was talking about trying to save Stapleton Rockmill Park,
Right.
He gave a little talk. Of course, he's given many talks.
Sure.
The talk that I remember him giving was that he said, "Wouldn't you all like to try to save this wonderful mill? Because if you don't, what'll happen is that the mill will disappear, and someday somebody will put a plaque on this site and say, on this site stood Rock Mill. Now all you can do is read a plaque."
Yeah.
And so he was basically saying, folks, let's get on with this and get this done. With the help of many, many volunteers, it got done. A shout out to Dave Fay. He was an inspiration to many of us for making that happen.
I've seen programs on WOSU, WOUB about, the Rockmill Park is a unique situation with an actual working grist mill there, and the way that if you've been out there to see it and have seen any of the programs, maybe if you haven't been there, about how it's developed, it's a remarkable bit of restoration. I mean, when you think, and I think back even when I was in school, when you were in school, that things had really fallen down. It was going to hell in a handbasket for years there. Kids would be out there jumping off that, jumping. Right. It was just a place going down. But Dave Fay, somebody like him, and people like that have a vision that they can see what could be here, and here we are 20, 30 years later. It is a wow place.
It is, and I hasten to add one other event that took place out there for the past several years, and that is the Lancaster Festival put one of its Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening concerts on the bridge itself.
On the bridge.
And with the gurgling brook underneath their feet, we listened to a brass quintet playing. And that was.
Does it get any better than that?
It was an idyllic setting. It was just a Norman Rockwell moment, and so that's the kind of moments that these parks provide for us.
So people now are debating. They have to make up their mind. Will they vote for this? Will they not vote for this? This is in. Is it May?
May 4th.
May 4th. It'll be up for and everybody will have a chance to vote on that. If you're to tell anybody why they should vote for this, what would your spiel be?
Well. My spiel would be, this is a hidden gem. As you indicated at the earlier part, at first you thought this was just part of the city parks. A lot of people don't know that we have a county park system. When I mention 17 parks, that raises eyebrows. And so here's a chance to build on what's been going on for the past 20 or 30 years or so, and make an even better attraction for Fairfield County. Not only, of course, for our own residents, but it brings in tourism too. And so there's a lot of reasons to do this, again, with a simple yes vote. And by the way, early voting begins April 6th. In this area of COVID, a lot of people want to get out early so they can get their ballots as early as April 6th. And when they do, I ask them to mark yes. I also will mention that there are not a lot of issues on the ballot this year. This is the only countywide issue. There are
only one.
There are other issues in Pickerington and Walnut Township, Madison Township, Bern Union, and even one
countywide.
Yeah, but even one in Lancaster is the 6th ward. There's a primary, but other than that, you got to make a point to get out and vote for this levy.
And that's important.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So we hope everybody will jump on that.
So the original levy was in 2011?
2011. It was a 10-year levy, which is up this year.
And so here we are.
Here we are.
And it's no more than, what was it, you say 0.4?
It's 0.4 mils
Okay.
on
And it's
property.
a renewal, no new taxes.
Right.
Can we say that again?
We can say that again and again and again. No new taxes for certain. So that's what we're aiming for.
Well, I mean, it's a thing, like Dave Fay said once upon a time, if the parks would go, there are no new parks. I mean, this is it. We got to keep going what we've got.
That is true. I might also put a plug in. We're trying to get the word out with yard signs. You see this yard sign you have behind here. If people are interested in putting a yard sign in the yard, I wish they can contact us at the parks. Better yet, just check us out on our Facebook page.
Okay.
And let us know if we can put a yard sign out for you.
Ken Culver, who's the chairman of the Renewal Committee for the renewal of the Fairfield County Parks Levy, .4. How much per year?
$9.61 for a
$100,000 house.
Yeah.
So work that out. Do the math on it. It's worth your time and worth your efforts to get it done. Ken, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Vote
Thanks.
yes, Parks.
Vote yes, Parks. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Always a pleasure. Ken, thank you. Good luck. Thank you for joining us on Fairfield Today.
Interface Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.